Hi everybody, this is Katie. Welcome to my kitchen. In today's episode, I have something very special for you that I've never done before. I'm going to show you how I make sourdough baguettes. I've been making bread for 3 or 4 years now, and long before the pandemic started. And my starter that I use, this is a sourdough starter. The starter is 3 years old. It's been fermenting in my kitchen, so that's what I'm going to be using to make the bread today. And really the shape doesn't matter quite so much. The recipe is the same. It's the handling and shaping that changes the nature of the bread. At least for this starter, the one I use. So to get started, in the bottom of my KitchenAid mixing bowl, I'm going to put about 7 grams of flaked sea salt. This sea salt is from Mexico. It's about a tablespoon. I use grams in my measuring. I'll try to do a conversion for you. So we put that in first. Then that's going to be followed by 230 grams of water, or what is this, about a cup? About a cup. I like to use room temperature filtered water. I'll pour that in there. And then the other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to swirl this around so that the salt dissolves a little bit in the water. Now, the order of these ingredients is kind of important. The reason for that is if you put the salt on top of your bread starter, it will kill the yeast. But you want salt in your bread because it adds a little bit of flavor, and that helps with the texture as the bread bakes. So you want to make sure that your salt is dissolved in the water before you add the next set of stuff. So this recipe is very simple. It is salt, water, flour, and starter. But you can cheat, you can use yeast instead of bread starter, but then that's going to screw with your water and liquid ratios. So there's our salt's dissolved in there. Next I'm going to add, what is this? This is 400 grams of flour, maybe 2.5 cups. Using my silicone prep bowl set for this. It helps when you're pouring into the thing. So we got our bread in there. In here, finally, this is my bread starter. According to my prep bowl, it's 125 milliliters. It might be somewhere between half a cup and 3/4 of a cup. So we're going to put our starter in there. Happy little starter. Yeah, so the starter, the bread starter, it is a living thing. It's fermented food. Fermented food is, as a general rule, is good for your gut because it helps build prebiotics and probiotics and things like that. So there is our starter. So once again, we had the salt, the water, the flour, and the bread starter. So I used 160 grams, or what did it say? 125 milliliters if you're metric, or somewhere between a half and 3/4 of a cup, but not, maybe 2/3 of a cup is about right. That's why I measure everything. When you're baking, it's important to weigh and measure your ingredients so that your quantities are as exact as possible. Cooking's an art. Baking's a science. So here we are. We're going to lock and load in my KitchenAid. I'm going to turn it on. I have it fitted with my dough hook, and I put it on the stir setting, and I don't know if you can see in there. Let's get a little better view. So I have it on the stir setting until all the ingredients come together, and after that I'm going to take it up a notch to, what is it, number 4. So that will knead the bread, and I will leave it on that setting for about 20 minutes. So we'll check back in 20 minutes once I raise it up, and we'll see how the bread is doing.
Bread, 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 bread.
All right, so let's turn this thing off. We're gonna unlock it. So this is what your dough should look like after 20 minutes of being kneaded by your KitchenAid mixer. So let's scrape some of this back in. So what's going to happen next is I am going to get it shaped into a nice little ball. The bottom of this mixing bowl, because you can see the mixing bowl is pretty clean because it sucked up all the flour and ingredients. And then I'm going to squirt it with a little bit of olive oil on top, the squirtable olive oil, and then I'm going to cover it with saran wrap. And then I'm going to let it sit for an hour, and in an hour we'll come back and we'll get it shaped into that classic baguette shape. See you soon. So we've got the dough off the hook. We've got it shaped into a nice little ball. I've covered it with olive oil. Now we're going to let it rise. I'm going to cover it with saran wrap here. Going to let it rise for an hour. I like to put it in my microwave because the microwave actually makes a really good proofing box. I don't need any kind of fancy baking material. And just stick it in the microwave. Granted, I can't use my microwave for that period of time. But the reason why we need to knead it for 20 minutes is for gluten production. When you're working with yeast breads, that's all about the production of gluten. And the gluten in the flour comes from the protein and the yeast. And that's what makes your bread nice and fluffy and enjoyable to eat. So we're going to take this, I'm going to put it in my nuker and let it rise for an hour. And we'll come back and see what's going on. It should be doubled in size. And at that point, we're going to knead it again. We'll do the proofing and we will shape it into that classic baguette shape. See you in a little bit. So we've got the bread out of the microwave. You can see it's doubled in size. So what we're going to do now is proof it and then we're going to shape it. So I've got my handy dandy tool here. What we're doing when we proof it, we want to make sure we get all the air out, so that it can have a second rising. There we go. Get little bits out of the bottom. All right. Actually, I'm going to need this later. So basically, we're going to mush it all up. You'll see behind me over here, this is my baguette shaping pan. So I don't know what we're going to have 4. We'll have at least 2. Let's see how 2 come out. Because I want a nice meaty baguette. You'll see the dough is silky. Doesn't have any wrinkles in it. There we go. Got a nice little lump there. And I'm going to use my little tool here to cut it in half, so that we can shape it. There we go. So I'm going to take, if you saw me doing the folded over, the pull and pinch method to get it into the ball. I'm going to do that again for these guys. And then, you stay right there. Then I'm going to roll it. Kind of let gravity do the work for me. Although it's not doing the work that I want it to do. There we go. So what we want are 2 baguette-shaped loaves about the same size. That is our goal in doing this. Because then after we shape the bread, it's going to go back into the microwave for another proofing. I'll let it sit another hour so that it doubles in size again. So I started doing bread, maybe it was the summer of 2018 maybe, and had my same starter going all the way since then. And maybe I'll put in a card or a comment in the comments below so that you can learn how to do your own sourdough starter as well. But I did it from based on the bread master class from this Irish fellow. And I don't remember his name. So there we go. Got baguette number 1. It doesn't look perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. What matters is that you try. And then if it doesn't come out the way you like it, you try again. Because I remember when I was learning to do the sourdough bread, I had many, many loaves that didn't come out quite right. Maybe they were too dense, or maybe they didn't taste right, or they had a weird flavor. Maybe they were too crusty. I know French baguettes are typically very crusty, and they give you what they call the French bread mouth because the crust is really, really hard. But then on the interior, they're super fluffy. So we'll see how these guys come out. Every time I use my home done starter, it comes out a little bit differently, as it should. It's a living thing, and you will not get the same results the same time. What you can do is get consistent results, and consistent results aren't quite the same as the same. You're gonna stretch out for me here. Here we go. It's a little better. How's that look? Oh, it looks a little better than the first one. All right, we're gonna stick him on there. I'm going to squirt them with olive oil so they don't dry out while they're proofing again. I'm going to do this again before I bake them as well, so they'll get a nice crust. Yeah, sprayable olive oil. Best invention yet. So there we go. You can see we've got our baguettes for shaping. We're going to put them back in the microwave to proof for another hour. They'll get fluffy again. Hopefully they won't. Let's see if I can prevent them from like sticking into each other. Maybe they'll go that way. So we'll catch up with you in a little bit. You can see the progress on the baguettes. Okay, everyone, so we've got our baguettes. You can see they're kind of shaped. They're not going to stick to each other though. They still have their coating of olive oil. I'm going to make the slits in them with a paring knife, and we're going to put them in the oven. My oven is preheated to 325, and I will bake them for 25 minutes, and we'll see how this goes. So yeah, that's the baguettes. They're coming along. They're not perfect, and they don't have to be perfect. The point is that we're trying. All right, we'll see this soon.